Just about ready to go. We're live.
Good.
Somebody
Glad you
talk
got it
for a
working.
while.
I'm glad you got it figured out.
Maybe you should put some table in the back there.
I'm the last one.
Kelly, you're on so you can talk.
Welcome to the meeting.
There you go.
I'm missing somebody. No.
7 of us, that's all there is. I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's the ARP committee meeting, and we're just discussing, we had numerous applicants last 2 visits, and we need to discuss the process and procedure we're gonna follow. Determining eligibility and what kind of funding we're going to recommend providing. As we said, we are just an advisory committee. We do not make that decision. It'll be passed on to the commissioners and council, and they will ultimately make the decision on the funding. They have respected our decisions in the past, and I suspect that will happen going forward. So we have numerous ones that we don't have enough money to fund them all, that's for sure. And has everybody had a chance to kind of go through the documentation? I brought back what I have with me.
Well, I was in Omaha visiting my grandbabies, but I have viewed the meetings that I met, so. I think someone had mentioned that there may be grants available or alternate sources of funding.
There was a couple of them mentioned at the time we had it. I think several of them actually mentioned the potential for some of it. I know we got a message back from the softball group that they were, I don't know if they've ever came up with anything from potential from Mulder's.
Mulder's, yeah, they were looking for
Rock
a donation
Concrete Creek, so they
to help
may be,
offset the cost.
Yeah.
Some kind of in-kind donation.
something where they were gonna provide them some material or something, so I don't know exactly where that stands. Our area was primarily physical health related. I'm looking through the list of applicants, Widow Barrel Food Pantry, Perry County Food Pantry, Candleton Food Pantry, Tell City Parks and Recs, Perry County Ambulance, the first responder proposal, the Tell City Police Department, Tell City Softball, Derby Community Center, Perry County Council on Agency.
Aging.
On aging, I got agency down. Legion Field renovation, from courthouse, the coroner, and Optomat Imaging System, and the Leopold Conservation Club.
Can I just make one correction? It was my understanding, I mean, we went through this thoroughly when we said it, that it not physical health care. Two different things,
So that's what
health care.
I don't know when that was set, but do you have like the wording that was used and what was the, application process? What were the directions?
This has been a real transition there. I'll get you up to speed. When we first started out, we had a set of rules that then changed the rules. And, we had things we could donate to and could not donate to. And the county actually, this is before me even, they turned around and got involved with the local group and put up an electronic application. That seemed to frustrate a lot of people. And so after we went through that, sorted that out, then they changed the rules once again. The county took it as 100% loss, which gave us more flexibility on what we could do with the funding. And then at that time, we just decided to pick certain areas out. What we had done before was mental health, people who actually small business, nonprofits, And they, at the first round, they needed to show that they had suffered some type of a loss or something, not the
And that
mental
was
health
because of
people.
the government rules.
Right.
That wasn't anything we decided on. That was
Sure,
government
sure, yeah,
rules.
yeah.
So that's how that one went through the process, and then we just decided we're gonna choose like
A
areas.
sector. Mhm.
And instead of trying to have an orchestrated, fill out electronic document, we just thought we'll listen to their ideas and what their needs are. And I think that worked out better for
I
us.
do too, because that way you can ask questions.
But I just
But-
want, but I do want to clarify.
I do too,
part-
but-
Because since again, I keep saying this, but I was the only one on the first one. I don't want to criticize so much the people who were on this first group. I mean, especially Luke was a big part of coming up with the rules. The reason there was an application process and all these specific categories is those categories were required to be met at the time by the federal government. And had we just had a listening come present like we did in the later sections, we would not have met the requirements.
Sure.
And that's why those were come up with, so that rather than you're gonna come speak and now we gotta say, well, did you hit this point, this point? Give us something electronic and we can check the points off, because there were so many rules and regulations in the beginning. And
But
that's
this
why
time,
that process was there. It's not, it wasn't to make
sure.
it difficult.
but this one, this time, but what you all said was you said health care.
Care,
And
yes.
you didn't have, did you define that in any way, or you just said health care?
Well,
We
we
went,
did,
I don't know whether we actually wrote it down. We had already funded mental health in another round.
Gotcha, so this.
So
was-
then we
this-
decided,
so-
let's look
So
at,
it, what, yeah, I remember the
physical.
word physical was in it.
Yes.
Yes, I see, okay.
so that's kind of, we were pointed in that
Gotcha.
direction. We went back because part of our COVID, this came out of the COVID-19
Mm-hmm.
funding, and it was related back to physical health. And we thought,
healthcare.
healthcare, and we thought we would just
Yeah,
slice the words. But we would go back and see whether there's a need within the community in that respect, and that's how.
I get, the reason I'm asking is I'm like Sherry that, sorry, my pen went out, I'm digging it.
I have one if you need it.
Okay. So, because some of these, in my opinion, were great projects, but,
Where
their
did they fall?
physical health, so so that's where I really, like, you know, if you start defining what is healthcare versus what is, health prevention.
Yeah.
I mean, like, the Council on Aging, I mean, I support that 100%, that socialization is healthcare prevention. I mean, I believe in that 100% and read all the things, but is it healthcare?
See, and
Probably,
the
to me,
problem-
probably not, but I think it's a great project.
And we've had so many people, Mary, submit wonderful projects. And the problem with not sticking to the requirements is then other people who looked at theirs and said, well, but it's not really, so I'm gonna stick to the rules, and they didn't apply.
Oh, I
It's not
know.
fair to them because they could have applied as well. There
agree.
are tons and tons of wonderful projects in this community and organizations worth supporting. I'll shut up.
No,
No,
I agree, because
I
as we
agree.
walked out last week, I said to Randy, I said, what's the difference between healthcare or physical health and physical activity? And he said, we're gonna talk about that next week.
Care, we
Yeah.
specifically
Yes,
said healthcare.
Yeah, physical health.
And that was and
Yeah.
I think we have to go back to our intent. We had a discussion on that, and we set the parameters, and no, every single word wasn't spelled out, but this group knows what we were talking about.
But we did let everyone
Sure.
go ahead and make a presentation, because it was no more than fair.
For sure, yeah.
Well,
Maybe
We
they
didn't know what
interpreted
they
it.
were gonna present.
right, they had no idea what their
Yeah.
ideas were,
Right.
so we weren't gonna tell anybody just, oh,
Right.
there's
Yeah,
no
no,
way.
I totally respect
And
that.
all of us have different interpretations, but, you know, what I think is normal, what Randy thinks or whatever. But it's gonna come down to a vote, you know, and that's how it should be, you know, come down to a vote.
And like I
One
said,
who
we
gets
don't
the
make the
most votes.
final decision.
No,
Where are we going to investigate the possible, matching funds? I mean, how are we doing that? Has any of that been investigated yet?
What I'm thinking is how we, first of all, we need to, if we stick with how we did that, which I think we should, we need to just kind of sort through and see which projects we feel like meet those requirements. And then at that point, not telling the other ones that they're out, just get into that one or two or three, whatever that amounts to, and then determine how we might rate them. And then I think we need to get some involvement with them because, and I'm gonna use one for an example. My understanding is there's some foundations that would provide funding for AEDs. If we can successfully get some of that funding, we will need less ARP funds. If we need less ARP funds, it's gonna allow us to spread them for them. So if we can research those things, if we can figure out which ones we want to, that fall in the right category initially, and then do some work, and I think we have to get those people, made those presentations
Get
involved
them
too.
involved. Well, they'll be the one applying for the grants.
Right.
So they have to be
Well,
involved.
but whatever we can do to reach out,
Mhm.
because I know there's a lot of questions. And I look at it like an AED, I'm on that now. The police department, Tell City Police Department needs 2 units. The sheriff's department needs 2 units. The ambulance has a different brand than what both of the police departments are using. If there's a method or something where we can do something to try to get them on the same platform, we need to explore those options, what we might do for funding and that. And I'm just using AEDs as an example. But just kind of across the board. But
And that would be a real widespread.
yes, but
Area.
get involvement with the actual key individuals that's gonna be involved with us here.
Well, and as an example for the grants, I sit on the Region 15 board, and I have been looking since our last budget session for things for the EMS, for the equipment needs that we didn't fund. And so, recently, she shared with me that like Norfolk Southern has a grant for first responders and things like that, and it opens April 15th. So it's up to $15,000, and she said that some of these things might qualify, so I think it would be a good idea to pursue something like that to help save some of this ARP money. If we can get a couple of the things through that, or at least try, we'll still have, I don't know, that's just.
Norfolk Southern, that's railroad, isn't it?
Yep.
Mhm.
And then there was another local position that said there's a potential of another foundation that would possibly pay for the training books for the first responders. So
The
again,
more of those kind of grants we get, the more money's
Just
left over to fund
for
other
other things.
projects.
Right,
exactly.
right.
So I think that our pursuit needs to be, if we think, we pull the ones out that we feel like followed what our intent was, get them involved, work through them, see what kind of additional funding we could get. Then we'll get a general idea on what it will take for that group. Then we'll know how many dollars we have left over, and we can make some decisions then going forward. But just
And a lot of
one
the
step
groups
at a
that made
time.
presentations, they don't have any idea of how to apply for grants, where to look for grants. You know, we just have to put them on the hunt,
Mhm.
tell them what to do, and if they need help.
We have Region
We'll
15
help.
too, that the county
Yeah,
pays to
Region
get
15
help.
will help, I know.
So how long are we gonna do the whole grant? I mean, I guess I'm worried about the time frame and making sure we get our money spent. I don't wanna wait a whole long time before
No.
we start making decisions. I mean, I don't know what you guys are thinking, how long before we get people to apply and say, we're applying for this grant before I mean, I don't wanna do a whole long time because we're gonna run out of time and lose the money if we do that.
Yeah.
Well,
what
you
we
just have to have
do
it
is get a
allocated
key.
by the end of the year, and it has to be spent by the end of 26. So
So
we could still
if we
allocate, because if
did
they
like
come
a
in.
month, that would be May. That would give us, mid-year is gonna be June. I mean, I think we can't go more than a month of looking at the grant. I don't know what you guys think, but if we wait too long, we're not
Mary, you have
gonna.
experience in grants. What do you think about?
It just gets
Really
really
pursuing those
complicated,
things.
like I think it's good to pursue them, but I think it gets really complicated, like if you tie it. And maybe this is oversimplifying it, but I almost think like if you decide what you want to fund and you set your priorities and do a little bit of research to know that they should be able to apply for other funds and then go ahead and make a decision based on that. You know, don't give full funding based on the fact that they should be able to pursue other funding, as opposed to you doing all of that legwork.
They have to show some effort on their end.
What we did, Mary, at the Troy Fire Department, as an example, they had asked for $72,000 for some air packs. And we had a discussion with them, and the consensus was to buy the same brand that Tell City has, so they're interchangeable, everything works. Well, it was about 77,000 then instead of 72. They applied for a USDA grant and got 41,000 of that paid for. So in essence, we only funded 36,000 of that project. So we have that other 41,000 now that came back to us
That's
that
great.
we can use on other things. So it took a little while. Troy doesn't have the clout that a bigger fire department, so they put them off a couple times as far as delivery is concerned. But they got them in February. They're funded, they're paid for, and now so following that, if we get into something, we may, and this will be the group, decide to fund it 100%. With the understanding is we'll apply for these grants if they come in, and whatever that amount is will be returned back. And then that allows us to have other funding for other projects.
That's good.
So that's kind of how we approach
Yeah,
that.
that's a good.
But we need to require them to try to
Oh, yeah.
apply for these
Yeah,
things,
anything is-
not just if you want to
Say they
apply.
will
You
and
know,
don't.
if it's
Right.
available,
Right.
you need some help.
Because any dollar that we can pull back into the community is
You got to stretch it as far as you
one
can.
better dollar that we've got here. So,
Well, if I may, and Mary started the conversation, which in my opinion is proper, I'm not gonna pick apart the term healthcare. Healthcare is healthcare. As we sat through these two sessions, 3 items stuck out in my mind as healthcare. The AEDs for the police department, saving lives, the required tools and equipment that the EMS needed, and the eye care center.
And say the last
The
one.
eye care center. Them are all healthcare. I believe, in my opinion, the food pantries, the council of aging, the parks, the walking track, them are all kind of in the same category. Leopold, Conservation Club, Rome, Derby, they're all kind of in the same classification.
They're trying to bring their buildings and stuff up to
Yeah,
AED.
I would put Derby, Rome, and Leopold,
ADA.
I think Derby might be
maybe up with
Maybe
parks and stuff.
with the parks, but
Yeah.
still, we're splitting hairs. I mean, we're,
Yeah.
but we're still saying they're not
So, but
healthy. I would agree with
yes,
that,
I would
yeah.
agree with, I would agree with the type of the walking tracks, the parks. The food pantries and council of aging, they kind of go together pretty well hand in hand, but it's almost, it's not healthcare. I'm not gonna split the term healthcare and say because I can host a vaccine clinic that that's healthcare, because to me, it's not. But their requirements and what they're asking for is a good thing.
It's almost more like community needs.
Yeah, it can be,
well, it's
Well,
positive. It's a positive.
It is.
just, and so we're gonna split Derby off that, but Rome and Leopold's needs are two of the same.
Mhm.
They're good institutions, they serve the rural community, and I think they're great.
Yeah.
They're not healthcare.
Tony, going on
Well,
what
they're
you said,
to me, they're indirect healthcare. I mean,
Well, you're
it's
splitting
according
the
to how
term
you
healthcare.
split hairs, but
Yeah.
it's not the healthcare
If
is.
you're gonna consider
hands-on,
bathrooms at Leopold the
but,
same as AEDs and eye care,
mm-mm,
that's not the same.
it's not.
When we say healthcare, what the the police department asks for, what the eye care center asks for and EMS for, is all about saving lives in healthcare.
I think the
Well,
first.
Tony,
That's my opinion.
if we go back to what you said with AEDs and EMS especially, you know, one of the things again was in the beginning was trying to affect as many people in Perry County as we could. Well, AEDs and EMS equipment, I cannot think of anything that would affect every single person in Perry County more than that will. I might not need it today, but I might need it tomorrow, and it may be someone in my family. And that affects not just people who live in this city or that city or this community, or need this or need that, but every single person in our community is affected by EMS equipment and AEDs.
All the groups that came in and talked to us, I don't need to, they've sold me. They've got some
Great
great
projects.
things.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The coroners. The coroners is, they presented a good thing on
The coolers.
keeping people cool to save body parts. That's in a whole different class. Is it healthcare? Keeping a corpse cool?
That's another indirect, byproduct of that, because yes, it
I
would
see-
be great healthcare if someone can get that body part.
And I-
Yeah, I kind of
And
see it
again,
that way too. you know.
if I'm gonna tweak the corners to save body parts, I'm gonna tweak that into saving my eyes, getting my heart going.
Yeah.
So I can live with that.
Yeah.
What about the first responders, those boxes out throughout?
Yeah.
I mean, that's, I think that's
They're,
definitely.
they're, they're also darn good. It's,
The only problem I have
I'm not
with
opposed to
stretching
any
it
of it.
real far.
I understand.
Yeah, I like all the projects too, but again, the only problem I have with stretch it is that people who said, yeah, I could apply for that, but that would be stretching and it doesn't meet the intent.
Yeah.
Do we now have to go back and let them apply? Because honestly, I could say shampoo's healthcare. I mean, I could. You don't shampoo your hair, you're gonna get, lice or whatever. You can say anything's healthcare if you wanna stretch it, but I don't think that was our intent.
I wanna get through what we consider true healthcare.
I do.
As Stan said, if it takes a vote, it takes a vote.
Yeah.
All these people don't need to come back and talk to us. They've sold me.
yeah, I think each
On
one
a
of these should be
different-
voted on.
When we get through this, we go to the net, we say, okay. So if we've accepted this, do we allow somebody else to come in now? Because we kind of got these categories. Do we just open it up to everything once we get through healthcare?
I think we target what we think is healthcare, and then we'll address that at the next time, because I think that if we do have money left, which I suspect we will, we'll have to see where we are, and I think it's unfair not to allow others to come in and.
I would have to.
And to still
And tell us.
consider
Yeah.
maybe.
Can we go
some of
with the
these if
certainties
it fits the
first
category.
and research
Yeah.
some
And not make
grants
them
for
reapply.
those?
No, they don't have,
Yes.
they don't have to reapply.
And
They-
then go back
They've
and
done a good,
revisit
everybody's
the
done a
others?
great job.
The,
Like what Tony said,
yeah, that's. I mean,
AEDs, EMS and eye care, and have them look for grant things and
First responders, I think.
first
Well,
responders.
well, I think
that's-
it's-
I
well,
think
I
that-
meant that with,
Okay.
yeah.
I think as I have
There's the
that
Tell City
category,
Police.
you have ambulance service where they brought in, and I'll call it wrong, but it's a thumper.
Bumpers.
And the devices inside of every one of our ambulances cannot be repaired because they're 8 years old or whatever.
Their life expectancy is gone.
Ambulance is
The cardiac
related, and then the
monitor.
first responder program was training, for your neighbor, whoever we can get in the county, because we can't take an ambulance and get it there quick enough to save your life. But your neighbor who has the training and the equipment readily available may just save you while the ambulance is showing up. In that respect, that's where we get into, and I'm thinking I'm gonna package in the Tell City Police Department and the Sheriff's Department who have this equipment. Most of them have it in their vehicles. They're traveling. They can get to a lot of places relatively quick. As kind of part of that group too.
Mhm.
If you're going to.
They're
so-
AEDs.
So they're trained, they have the equipment, they have, but again, we have to determine where we might locate these AEDs so they're accessible to the outside,
Yeah, it needs to be
So
in
that-
certain communities.
so that trained people can get them. There will have to be some type of a maintenance because the batteries will need replaced. All these different things. So that'll be the process to and that's where I envision getting the health department, the hospital, the ambulance service, the police, the fire at the table and say, how do you envision putting this together? And then if it's one box, are 10 boxes. What's the cost of a box fully equipped? Where might we located? Hopefully easier public, whatever, but get some kind of a number reduced and then look for options of payment outside of ARP to see what, because I know the one on the first responder program, there was opportunities in that through the guy from Clarksville, as far as funding on that too. So just, you know, and I don't know how, whether it drags the project out for an extended period of time or whether we can get a yes or no answer fairly quick.
And who would do that?
I think that you pull that group together and try to get someone within that group, not us, to take on the leadership portion of
Designate
that.
someone from that group.
Yes.
Yeah, they have the
So that,
experience.
so that
We
they
don't.
come in, yeah. And then we just listen to what their needs is and we take the pencil and start adding up where they are to get a general idea. It's just like the ambulance service has another ambulance in there and Mary, you may not have seen our inventory, but it's not pretty. So that's something that the county needs to probably order so we can get it at the latter part of 24.
You're talking about the chassis.
Yep, to put a new box on. I found a box over here in the outside storage building that's suitable for
And it
rebounding.
saves how much?
Well,
Around 100,000?
yeah,
2 year
it'll save
wait
it.
on them.
Oh, wow.
It'll save 100,000 and it's not got many miles on it. It's a very nice box. So we can pull that one out and use it. So, that would be 2. And then we're gonna need a third one coming up within a couple years to try to get that fleet back up. And that's not addressing the internal portion of the equipment that cannot be.
Isn't all this what you're talking about? It's great. You're a problem solver. But our mission is to give out the money. They have the project. And it's not up to us to say where they put these boxes, because I know you're a problem solver.
What I'm looking at, Stan, and I don't have the
I
answer.
understand where you're coming
Yeah,
from.
I don't have the answer to this, but
Yeah.
do we need to take the county and put a circle every 4 miles and have a box in that location? Or I don't know.
But that's up to them.
Yeah,
you know?
but we need to know, we don't need to know where the box is located.
No,
We do need to know that it takes
we
20
need
to
to know
do
how
that.
much money.
Yeah.
It takes 20 of those boxes.
We
to
need
do
to
that.
know that they
They have
have
to
a
have the
plan,
plan.
Yeah.
that they have a plan.
It would
We don't
nice
need to be
know
involved.
where
We don't
these
have to tell them
boxes
what
are.
it is. They tell us what it is and we can
Oh, yeah.
figure
Oh,
out.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
see,
and it
that's,
should be
I
on
think
the GIS system.
I think it would
Oh,
be
yeah.
nice
You
for
know.
the people, citizens of this county to know where
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
AEDs are.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
But I
Yeah.
think Stan's saying we don't need to be involved.
Yeah,
in
we're-
determining
I don't
where
wanna
they
be-
are. They
I
need
just want them to have the
That's-
plan and tell
it's
us so
their
we can plan
project.
how many we need to purchase.
Right, and then the next step is the
Yeah.
county is going to have to look at ways to make this sustainable. Once the ARP dollars are gone, it will serve no purpose for us not to be able to put batteries back in these units. So we're gonna have to consider that, the cost associated with it, who's gonna go through and make sure they're serviced, whatever that is, but the county in year 2, 3, 4, whatever that is, needs to take on that.
I would like to see by the time the 1st of November comes around that we have no money more to give.
No,
We've
I'm
doled it
with
out.
you, if
I
not
agree.
sooner,
Yeah,
Yeah,
not sooner. for
but
sure.
that's my final, that would be my final,
so,
November, the 1st. And,
You know, the way you were talking, Randy, about that on knowing where these
Well, it has to be by December.
AEDs would
Yeah.
be
Allocated.
and
yeah.
replacing them when they need to be replaced, the batteries. You know, they could actually, and I know this how we used to do it, they would set up on a PM monthly, go around and check that battery.
mhm.
But now that's up to them. Who's gonna do that?
Right.
Make sure these batteries, buy a car battery, how long does it last? Maybe.
Yeah, and the problem you get into, I know, if we can get it in a building or on the side of a building that has heat and that, it's gonna last a lot longer
Yeah.
than we have one sitting out here that's subject to the changing weather.
Back to the ambulance, we got a good box.
Yep.
Is this number we're looking at 54,000, that's what the chassis is?
How much?
No,
What am I looking at?
No, the whole box.
No, I'm not talking about the box, I'm talking about the
If-
chassis,
Yeah,
with
If
the
you,
box
if
on.
you get it mounted and everything it needs to be, you're gonna be looking at
Using ours.
$200,000. Yep, you're looking at $200,000.
200K,
Whenever you put the chains on it, you'll,
that's using our box.
I mean, you're gonna be, right now, they're gonna start out in the neighborhood of around 180, 185. But I would just plan on 200.
by the
So-
time they get
So the,
detailed,
just EMS is close to $500,000.
an ambulance, that's
So I'm
just. an ambulance.
talking the ambulance, the Lucas, the cardiac monitors, the laryngoscopes.
Yep. Plus the blades that go with them.
Yeah, so we're at almost $500,000 right there. How much money do we have?
1.1,
Yeah.
that's what, with after the disbursement in 2023.
And that's
And can you,
100%
so
healthcare.
I understand, but this is almost half of what we got left.
Mhm.
How long will it take to talk to the people you're talking about, saying, where can we find some grant match money? Because this will burn up over half what we got. Just one. Not counting all the other 9 that talked to us.
I think Region 15 right away, first of all.
Well, I
So-
mean,
So who's gonna do that? So by the next meeting, we can make a decision on healthcare.
I agree.
Because you see, so if we take them and we take the TCPD and the eye care, we're 3/4 of the way through our money. And we haven't got to the freezer for the bodies, or
That's a cooler.
nor have we got to the first responders or anybody else.
Which is why we need to see if those organizations that you just mentioned can get some grant money, which leaves us more money to fund other things, but I don't think we go more than a month. Maybe contact them and tell them, you got a month to let us know, because we're gonna fund things.
The government, is there any chance that this could be funded in the next budget? If we take EMS and the other, we're gonna.
I wouldn't rely on it.
Yeah, wouldn't either.
I tried, it didn't work.
I mean, we're
So-
looking right now, Tony, just as an example, at the rate we're going, our Pulper attorney will be $800,000 this year, and they
Yeah.
budgeted
150,
150,000. So,
Which is
Not me, but-
completely irresponsible.
well, but it's done, that's why
But there's some
funding.
issues.
That's another story.
So it's imperative that we talk to these people that we've considered to be healthcare.
Right.
They
Contact
need
them
to
and
get
let
on the
them know.
phone, and we need to get a hold of Region 15.
I
We need
think
help.
so.
We need
Or if
help.
Mary has suggestions, if, you know.
No,
since
I mean,
you're-
I just Googled what you said,
Yeah, I think
Norfolk
it's-
South, that looks
I mean,
like,
it's 15,000, but it's 15,000.
And,
That,
You know, we'll take it.
that funds one of these other projects.
And it starts April 15th, so,
Mhm.
you know, is that something the county applies for? Is that something,
But
I would
see,
say the group had to apply for it, that wanted it. Why
or
should the
depending on,
ARP
is it a
committee have
first
to apply?
responders thing?
but are
And
they
see,
their own?
We need to
County?
identify.
well, that's the problem. You know, I don't know if it's, if,
It's 501, yeah.
no, what I'm saying is, you know, Tell City Police can apply for things. So do we, who applies for this? You know, because this is available.
This is where, that's why I feel like what we have, this is what happened to us. At one time, the way they explained it to me, the police officers and the ambulance had the same equipment. There wasn't a problem with the pads exchanging when you, and then for some reason, the ambulance service changed to another vendor, and the police did not. So now they're not compatible. They've got some cords they can make them compatible. But one of those sets of pads, when you put it on and then you pull it off, is $80.
They're no good.
You've lost it. So the idea is to get more uniformity back, and that's why I would like to incorporate that whole group for that discussion, so that they're all aware, and that goes hospital, health department, police, fire. I know they're looking at the fire departments to try to train them potentially as first responders, not wear them out on service work, you know, calling all the time, but have them available in the event the neighbor guy has some serious issues. But that's where I think pulling that group together, and then just determine who's gonna lead up some of these projects. You need to get somebody will step up and say, I'll take on the
So-
channel of the first responder.
So we're gonna decide here today that the Tell City Police Department, the EMS and the ambulance service and the first responders, we need to talk to them tomorrow.
Well, as soon as you get the group together,
Well,
I mean, you
So
need to,
who's gonna be responsible for getting the group
Yeah.
together?
you need to get the hospital and you need to get the health department.
A representative from there.
Because the health,
Warren, did you look, is there anything out there that you know of?
Well, the problem I've got, I don't qualify under a 501.
You're a government entity.
Yeah. That, I've checked, I've looked at several grants and the very first question.
But
501c3.
how does
That don't.
how does the
fall
Troy
under
Fire
county.
Department do it if the coroner can't? They're government.
What about, Department of Homeland Security? There's a lot of grants for hazardous.
USDA will,
I'm gonna
actually
send that to you.
USDA will,
Region
Troy
15.
Police
Talk
Department.
to
we get
USDA,
the several
Okra.
Arcanic and also.
I just sent you a link though, but it looks like that there's a lot like first responders.
So USDA will actually provide money to some of the smaller communities.
It's the matching.
So,
But you gotta kind of go looking for it to see whether it works or not.
okay, so who's gonna do what?
I mean, are we in a consensus to try to move that group together and have this discussion? But it's just like, see, the health department, I think, is in charge of the, first responder group, if I remember right. So that's what they do. The hospital and the ambulance are kind of their own entity. The police play a critical part, and I think they're trying to pull the fire departments in too. So, that's the group. And primarily, probably the first responder end of it is where they would discuss it. The ambulance end of it is going to be a hospital, decisions. You know, they have,
So what we need to do is get a representative from each one, not get 80 people in a room because that, you don't get anything done. We need a representative from each one of those groups.
I agree to that.
and then that might
That'd
be
be-
easier to get us
That'd be better,
together.
wouldn't it, Mary?
That way we wouldn't have to try to get them, because the more we get, the more it's gonna say, well, I
Right.
can't make it here, I can't do this,
Yeah.
and I can't, so. we
And do
may
you
be
wanna
able to
have
get-
this whole group, or do you just wanna have a representative or two? Would that be easier too? And then it doesn't have.
Can that
You don't have
representative
to
speak for
advertise or-
everybody else that they want, you know?
I don't know.
it-
I don't really
I think
know
it's-
how much we need to speak as much as we need to
Agreed.
We
listen.
don't need to.
It's a listening.
Yeah,
As a
because we
matter of
need to-
fact, like I said, we're going above and beyond what this committee's supposed to be doing.
We can lead them to the water hole, but
It's
we
up
can't
to,
make them drink.
it's up to those three or whatever needed to get together, and if they hear this and say, well, maybe we can get together. It's not up to us to
Yeah.
do that, but it's, I mean, we can follow through with it,
But
but
without a
it's,
plan, we
it's,
don't know how
Okay,
to.
so we're gonna get TCPD,
Right?
Perry County Memorial
Well,
Hospital, the Eye Care Center, the EMT, is that the four groups? that
I think
get
your eye care
represented?
center is not gonna participate in that. They're kind of on their own thing doing diagnostic work for their eyeballs. That's not in the same thing as a first responder, the ambulance and the
EMS.
EMS stuff, because,
They
I
already,
mean,
they know their specifics. I think.
yes, and they would do screenings and things of that
Okay.
nature, so
So
that's
we're
not.
gonna take
So
that-
where are we gonna put
For this
this?
conversation, they're coming out
Mhm.
for the
I think
grant
there's-
conversation.
Okay, for the
Right.
grant.
For the grant
Yes, I
conversation.
think there's still healthcare.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree, but
I do
what
too.
we're trying to
Yeah, yeah, it
accomplish is,
Yeah.
how do we get these together and where can we, tell us exactly what you need and get somebody to help us with grants. And at least,
Well,
we can still, as Mary said, we'll fund it pending.
Well,
We want you to apply for a grant.
We want
But
you
we
to apply
also
for a
have to have
grant.
a deadline too.
And they
I
don't
understand
have to get the grant, they have to be willing to apply.
Mhm.
And is it even there?
we did that with some of the others, and I know that the grant cycles didn't work.
Right.
As an example, when we
That's right.
funded
These are all.
the Cannleton
Well, look, when they open
rebuilding
up.
of their elementary school floor,
They're closed right now, but summer's starting open.
they couldn't, they would have, as a historical building,
Spring,
probably would
fall,
have
summer.
qualified, but it would have been a year or two in the grant
Oh, my
cycle.
God.
Their
Right.
floor was collapsing. They had to get the work done in the summertime. And they were kind of between a rock
the
and a
open
hard
date?
spot. So, they went ahead and did it with ARP funds. That's how they fixed that building. But,
Randy, could
So-
you get together with these groups?
Yeah, I can contact each one of them and try to set a time down, because we don't need to tell them, we just need to, it's just like with the police and the AEDs and compatibility. They need to think through where we're actually going, or maybe we can't do it all today, but maybe we can do it over a period of time. And as the other units age out, then they get replaced with something that's uniform. I don't know, that's a discussion for that group to have. and
Can we
see how
tell
they
them
affect.
we need specifics in a month and we meet back in a month and listen to their specifics so we can move forward and fund some of these other things too?
Yeah, because it doesn't mean that these other things aren't gonna be funded or considered. It's just the priority will be on the physical health care.
Because we'll
And
have
then
to,
see what the funding is that remains, figure out what we open it back up.
What
for.
I would like
other
to do then
communities.
is just to reach out individual and do it verbally or through an email or whatever, and say, here's kind of what we're thinking. We would encourage you to reach out to this group, these individuals, get a representative, because we'd like to get you on the same, as Michael Don referred to it, island. So you all understand and are working in conjunction with each other. And so there's nothing that's developed that causes heartburn for another group.
we don't want something different over here when we're trying to get it all the same for
Right.
everybody else.
But pull them together and say, now, what period of time do you need? 10 days, 2 weeks? And then we're gonna get together and go through these ideas. And then we'll have, that discussion at that time. Do you need 3 weeks, whatever it is? But maximum, I would not let it go past a month. I
I'd
just
say
think-
3 weeks.
But I think we need to actually reach out to the different groups, have them identify someone to represent their group, and then ask them for a comprehensive plan on how we'd approach this and what the funding needs are. It's just like the boxes. I don't know, they put the boxes out. I know basically what a box will cost, but do we need one or do we need 20? And then at the same time, I don't know how you do it, but Mary, it's just like that. I'm sure the school has it, but the school, Perry Central probably has them on the inside.
It's both.
They have them on the outside? Okay, so we need to figure out what organizations will make their property available to us
Mhm.
to mount these things. And if we can actually keep it, it'll be for
Space
their
them out.
benefit.
I think they need to figure that out, not
Yeah,
us.
yeah, but I'm just saying that's what.
But
the
we're
group needs to do.
asking them to do that, so we know if we
So
need 15
can
or
we
20 or.
tell them we
10.
want that done in a month? That would be May 10th, which I just looked on the calendars of Friday. Nobody wants to meet on a Friday, so the 8th or the 9th. That would give them a month to get it together. I just want to move forward and get some people
I'm
funded.
with you on that.
I know it's not a lot of time for them to get that together, but we have other people waiting
I
too.
think conceptually, they thought through this, they just haven't mixed the cake together. They got the ingredients, they just need to consider, the other group and how it impacts them.
Well, a lot of times too, when there's so many different groups coming in and they don't actually know what we want. So they can come in with any kind of a plan, but then now we're looking at
Well-
stuff to make that ARP money stretch farther with grants and everything else, so.
And there's been other communities involved in these first responder programs. And I think I would encourage them to reach out
Yeah.
to them, not recreate the wheel.
Yeah, Spencer County has.
Yeah, but
AEDs
there's some
everywhere.
with these boxes out there too.
Yeah.
And how they function and the mistakes that they made, we don't want to duplicate. But that again becomes that group and how they target it and how they.
And they're the
handle it,
ones who
not us.
have to do it and make you presentations
But
to
what-
us. Plan.
Yeah, what we need to know is how much money, and then our next challenge will be as a county, how we're gonna make it sustainable after this money's actually spent, because it won't serve a purpose
Spreadsheet.
if we get all the equipment, get everything set up, and then don't support it going forward.
Like there's a
That'd be
Department of
maintained.
Homeland Security EMS training grant here. It opens October 1st, October 20th, awards November 1st. We can ask them and it's all kinds of, it tells you, EMT classes, books, lab fees, paramedic classes, all these things that you can apply for. I think we should ask them to try for that. We
And
can set
even-
aside money, and then if they don't get it, they still have, we still have money, but if they do get it, it frees up more money for something else.
And even as you say that, Kelly, if we get first responders in the first round, they get trained.
Yeah.
Hopefully there'll be round 2, round 3, so we can expand the program to cover a larger area. So those things going forward would be a definite plus.
For paramedic training, $10,000 for training classes, EMT, $2,000 for training classes. I mean, it gives specifics, $9,000 for lab fees.
That's what the cost of it is, and that's what
It's what you can apply for.
you can apply for, okay.
I
So,
would like to see these smaller requests that, we could try to fund as many as we can on the 25K, Because when you start doing 100,000 here, 250,000 here, it takes up everything, but I would like to see.
Well, it's just like anything to do with that medical equipment.
Yeah.
It's phenomenally expensive. And they make it obsolete after a period of time.
I know.
I mean, it's a,
What
It's
we
a
have
good
right
yeah,
now is
we have
outdated.
a specific
Yeah.
plan to move forward.
Yep, and that should have never
We're
happened.
just talking in
I don't know
circles right now.
They need to have a plan.
Yeah, I don't know why or how it
Yeah,
ever
for
happened, but what we
replacement.
have now is obsolete,
That's not our department.
and that's scary.
They're just asking for,
Yeah.
so,
I think, so decide what you're gonna ask them for.
Yeah.
So that, back to a plan.
Absolutely.
And even the sustainability piece of it, like, really, they should come with, so like,
What's
if
the
you wanna
replacement?
follow up with them and say, this is what we want a budget
Mhm.
on a spreadsheet, we want to know your plan for applying for grants,
Yes.
and we wanna know what the sustainability plan is, like, what is it gonna cost?
What's the lifespan of
Three
this
things.
equipment? How do you plan to replace
Yeah,
it?
we
after
can-
it's-
you know, so-
exactly. And what
then
they
you
can
should
do,
have to figure that out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
we
their
need them
job.
to do that.
because it's just like the equipment, the guy came in and told us it goes, it lasts 8 years.
Mhm.
Well, you divide it by 8.
Yep.
You better be setting aside 1/8 of it annually.
yeah.
So that you can buy it at the end of
Start
its life
replacing.
expectancy. So it's relatively simple. It's just a matter of putting the effort into it to get it.
Yeah, that's the three things, like Mary said right there, that they need sustainability, the plan, and
The high school.
And a
their
budget.
grants, yeah.
So is everybody okay with May 9th, trying to be our target
What day
date?
is that?
Thursday.
Probably Thursday. Wait a
Only
minute,
if you bring me a birthday cake.
we don't have another meeting, do we?
Do you hear me?
I don't think so.
We don't.
I think that's fair.
That's fine, because I'm leaving the next week for Washington DC, but
You're leaving.
I can,
I've got some I gotta go to.
I'll take a blueberry pie for my birthday
if
cake.
you,
So I can do that.
I mean, if you want me to, I can try to herd the cats
Please.
and, get them together.
Yeah,
And-
that should give them enough time.
Right,
High school.
Come
I
on.
think that keeps it simple, and then you don't have to advertise a public meeting.
Yeah.
If you,
Oh, the
just one or
track, sorry,
two
I thought
committee.
you missed it.
You guys are-
Yep, the
once it's
track
like two
is.
commissioners, you're-
Yeah, make sure that they know that we don't need the whole fire department or the whole police department.
well,
or
they
whatever
just
here.
need to determine.
A
among
representative.
Well, they can determine it and tell us.
That's what I mean, they need to pick a representative or designated person to come do this.
And then our expectations on the 9th is to have numbers, a plan,
Sustainability.
details,
Plan, budget, sustainability.
How
like that works,
I'm looking, hold on.
sustainability.
come together here and then have someone out of the group present
I mean, the total
to us so we can question it,
was 254,000.
hopefully provide the documents in advance.
Oh,
so we
he
have a
asked you
chance to look
54
at it.
asked. No, I don't think he was asking for all that.
Which would then give us an idea how much money we would have left to fund some of these other things.
Mhm.
That,
And
okay,
then that would take us to by the 9th, and then
They
we'll
didn't
know
have a set number.
what they're asking for,
Whatever.
or what's gonna be, seems to be left.
what time on the 9th?
6.
Okay.
I don't care either.
They're asking for the
6.
Six.
Six,
I don't
care.
Would it be okay if I did like a Excel document budget, and then you sent that to them and told them to fill
Yes.
that out?
Yeah,
Well, that'd be
That'd be
great,
awesome.
Mary.
Okay, I'll have that to you by tomorrow.
You're all handy, you know what?
Well, I mean, it just kind of drives me crazy to be
Some down the
trying, like,
road.
going through these. It's
Different.
like, tell me how much it is, like,
Yeah.
it's, so,
Yeah.
all right, I'll put something.
And then maybe even add the sustainability
Yeah, I was
part
gonna
or
say, I might
lifespan,
just
what
go
is.
ahead and put some questions on.
Yeah.
that.
I
And I
already
think if
started
it's
that
uniformly,
spreadsheet. Because I have to look at it the same way.
Yeah.
Each item that they asked for, what the costs were.
Yeah.
I plugged in numbers of expected life expectancy just as a guess.
Yeah.
But they can actually answer that.
Yeah.
Because, and then it'll just calculate itself and tell us exactly where we're.
and just to be clear, so this doesn't get misinterpreted. The priority is just going to be on the physical health care, but it doesn't mean that if there's not money left, we can't look at the other things or open up a new category or
I can't,
relook at what these are. It's not a no, it's not a like,
Yeah.
a firm no.
And these groups, like Tony was talking about the eye
Those needs
center,
are, you know,
when are we gonna make a decision on that? And same thing with the cooler. When are we making decisions on that?
well, I'd say on the 9th, we'll have a number.
Yeah, we'll have a
And
number
at that
how much
point, we're
we got
gonna have this discussion's gonna come back up on either those things and or whether we wanna open the categories back up, what do we wanna do? So be thinking
Yeah.
about that, because we wanna be fair.
We're at 1.65 million just on them 2 meetings we had without putting Rome in there. I don't have Rome.
that's with all requests.
Without Rome.
But I think we ought to look at the physical health care first, like we talked
Mhm.
about, the things that we truly believe are
Oh,
physical
and that's not
healthcare.
the freezer for the corner either. So we're probably at,
He actually wants a
Close to two.
cooler, I don't think he wants to
well,
freeze.
you know what I'm saying.
Quit saying freezer.
Not a freezer, it's cool.
Did you get legal consultation?
That just,
Yeah.
like grosses me out anyway.
Only thing I'm missing is Rome and the cooler.
The room was
20,000.
100,000.
Let me look. I have.
I mean,
that
even
one,
Rome
even
was
if
a
they asked,
spreadsheet where this needs,
Yeah.
even if they
needs.
asked for.
This is what I wrote down, I didn't write down Leah.
I got
That's not
that.
saying that we can't.
Rome was 100,000, they were gonna match 100, we would
Yeah,
give them
yeah.
100, they would do
So that's
100.
1.7 million.
Yes, you're right, Mary.
Without-
Rome was, we'll give 100, they give 100.
The cooler was
If we had
For
one
200,000.
column.
25. So we're one, we're at a million,
It'd be
725.
So we need to find.
How much?
Million seven,
But are we gonna,
1,725,000.
we are gonna separate healthcare first and
Oh, yeah.
fund some of
I'm
the
just trying
others,
to
we
get a
need to open it
realization.
up.
Yeah.
to
That's
other
what my
people.
understanding
How
is,
big
because
this
it's
was.
like if
I'm gonna make sure we're all on the same
physical
page.
activity, I think that
That's-
we have
We need
a
that on
lot
the
of other
spreadsheet.
groups that.
And it doesn't mean
It's
they would
not
have to
fair to
reapply,
exclude.
Right, these
That's
would
why I
have
was
to,
pushing them.
but.
Yeah.
Right.
but you would have to allow others to have a
And a
chance.
lot
I
of
know.
them that we
I
did
know
get
we are.
during this round of the presentations was physical activity,
Right.
you know?
And what we did on one of our other rounds, Mary, was we went through the same process and then we did open it back up too.
Yeah.
Because we thought it's a fairness issue, because
Got it.
possibly we didn't describe it correctly. And we didn't want to actually eliminate somebody
Smaller.
that could have a very
The most.
good quality
Yeah.
We're
project.
trying to reach
And
out to
everybody
the
said,
largest.
would you accept what we?
But I
did?
think, you need to, like, you keep the intent, this
There,
was the
we gotta make
intent,
the-
was
Yes.
We gotta make the biggest
right,
impact.
healthcare, and so take care of this first, get as many possible, which, and it may be, all the money may be gone,
And that's
We're
right,
guessing.
it may be.
We have no
maybe,
idea.
and then see what happens, but you gotta start with
That's why I
that.
think it's
Once you-
critical to ask them to look for these grants too, because
Right.
we can free up.
That will free up a lot of money. That could free up enough to buy the cooler.
And-
I mean, or one of these other places.
Right, right.
Well, I mean, and that's the same thing with the AEDs. If we can get partial funding on them, I don't care if they give us $500
I'd
a
rather give
year.
everybody something than nothing.
Right, stretch that out.
So we're done.
So are we
Mary,
good with
put
that?
this all in that email, so we all see it,
Yeah,
so we can understand.
So then someone's gonna get it to the groups, to the.
Yeah,
Randy
Randy is gonna do that.
I'll get a
And then
hold of,
I just had one question about the eye care, and maybe this, we need to ask them, is that machine that they're talking about is very specific, so is that something, the federal guidelines they have to bid out, or I don't know if it's just that company is the only company that makes it, or, there's some, I don't wanna,
You wanna go down there tomorrow? I will not be able to do it tomorrow.
well, I'm just thinking about, like, I don't know the federal rules with this. Do they have to bid since it's almost $100,000 machine?
and that machine,
Exactly.
here's my thoughts on that. I would like to have some type of involvement with the hospital, with the eye doctors, and I'd like to talk to the schools.
Mhm.
Because they acted like this may be a possibility, we can bring the kids through there in some
Yeah.
fashion, have them all screened, or how that might
Yeah.
work. Because I think if we can catch, or whether we need to get, senior citizens or whoever the impacted people are through the door to get them to make sure we catch some of these problems. I think that's the positive with that machine.
Yeah.
Is simply catch it early.
Right.
So
Impact as many people.
how do we do that? Because they used to have that at the schools. They would come and they would, do the eyes.
The dentist used to do it
Yes.
too.
They
come
still,
to school.
schools still do eye checks it's a requirement, it's a state requirement, but that's just the school nurses
Right.
just do the
Right.
check, it's not within the machine, but.
But if, and I don't know how, I'm completely lost at how quick you could run children, senior citizens, whatever, whoever would be an impacted group past this, just to do screenings. And I think then, as a private business, it's easier for us to justify using public dollars to buy a machine like that, because the public will be served.
I think you could, with that particular proposal, you could have 2 or 3 follow-up questions that you want a written response to. You want a plan, you could even ask for support letters from the schools, the hospital, of how they're gonna collaborate to show that. I don't think that's too much to ask.
No,
And I
absolutely
like
not.
that, because it's commitment. It forces commitment.
There again, the life cycle of this machine is 8 years.
Probably
We
so.
cannot ask them to budget like we was trying to ask them, so. we gotta be
Sustainability.
careful. It's the same difference,
We want to grow our.
and you would
health
hope they
services.
would budget for it, now that they got it, and
But if
continue
they're giving
this.
away the services, it's hard to make $1 off of
I
it.
know
So
it, yeah.
Well, they're doing it right now with some other machine they have,
This
but
is
they
not
said that
closed.
they don't charge for it.
It's just not as advanced.
Yeah, it's just
It's
as a
like
courtesy.
anything.
Mhm.
I mean, they become more sophisticated as
Right.
time goes on.
So,
I would
okay.
assume if it's beneficial.
Well, if they go
they'll
buy a
budget
machine
that.
today,
How much
it's not to be
beneficial they'll
outdated
budget
tomorrow.
another one. They'll probably be something totally
would
different.
think
So I will ask them questions of, I can say, Friday, I'm stopping there.
See what you can find out.
Ask your
Information, I'll ask for a written
Yeah, it's a
response.
little different.
They
private.
would,
And then-
but you
and
can't
then
ask them
just
to do
approach
it,
them,
we can't.
About how they would maybe envision the hospital and the schools, and whether it's the senior citizens some way. I don't know who the impacted group is that really needs the screening. They would know it. But how they would envision
what they
doing
could-
something like that, I don't know.
And your question was, does this have to be,
Is this something very specific? Is this something only one company makes and you
does it
can
have
only
to be
get it
bid
from?
at?
Right, or is this something that 5 companies make and the federal rules because of
Guidelines.
ARP say it's over 50,000 and we have to bid it out?
Okay.
We need to know those things.
He did mention that they were, like, there was a pretty significant discount given.
Yeah,
Yeah, he did, didn't he? Mhm.
And part of this is what we have to explore on these ambulance equipment also. I think they're gonna allow us to trade in the old stuff
mhm.
and they'll knock money off. So to get that number
It'll help.
reduced to what it actually
Okay.
Just like the
will
box
cost.
will help.
Yeah.
Bring down the total cost.
So, yep. So
We can
those are
find
things that will get us down to a number that, is more realistic. So. Are we done?
I'll take care of the eye care, and when I get them answers, I will scan it and send it to.
And Mary's gonna make this spreadsheet.
Spreadsheet, and then
With
I'll
some
reach out
questions.
to the group to try to,
The EMS
First-
first responder?
I wanna go to the hospital,
Okay,
the ambulance service. I don't know who the director is now. I think they're changing. Tell City Police.
I can help you with that if you need.
Okay, Tell City Police, the Sheriff's Department. I want to get the representative from the Fire Department, because I think they're going to be active in the first responder, and then Steve Hauser, he's a part of it too. So, that whole group get maybe a representative for each one of them, just to go through how they envision this and, make sure that it makes sense for the community.
And then we'll have a better idea of where we're at with money,
And what we've got
And
and
what the
where the
need
rest of
is.
it can go.
what grants are available.
It'll give us a number, and even if we say, here's the gross amount, we set it aside, we're gonna have to preserve some for our audits. They just put a new ruling out I read just today, that we can set that aside, because it's gonna happen over a period of time, but we'll have to set that aside. But, if, for instance, it's X number of dollars, and then they are successful with 50,000 or 75,000 in grants somewhere along there. That'll free up ARP money for us to allocate in other locations.
And I'm new to this board, but it was my understanding before, if there were any questions about eligibility or anything like that, we had one representative, and I think it was Sherry, who would reach out to Baker Tilly. Can we still continue
Yes.
with that? So if any of us have those type questions as far as the bid,
We
or whatever.
earmarked some money for that, but instead of each individual giving them a
Yeah.
call and having the
Yeah.
chit chat,
I think it
we
was
took
Sherry,
it.
is that?
Sherry
still
did
okay?
it through a written
You don't want 5 answers.
emails, and so we sent the questions that we had to her. So when and if we get to there as
Yeah,
far
we're
as.
about to charge it.
So- We need those questions
So if
like
something
as soon as possible, so there's only one email, but less, we get charged less by
Mhm.
time
Oh,
wise.
sure.
If we can do them in a group, and we have kept our expenses with them extremely low.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, there's,
That's a whole.
every dollar we don't spend with them is another dollar we can pour back into it.
Yeah.
And we got it audited
Oh, yeah.
with zero problems.
Good.
Congratulations,
This whole
that's
thing.
So,
Great.
I like that target, because that's,
Yeah.
Whole
so
thing
we just watch
for
what
the
we're doing.
boxes and all the. aids.
So if everyone's ready to call it a night, I'll entertain a motion to
I'll
adjourn
make
and
that
walk
motion.
over. Dan made the motion, Sherry, all those in favor,
Aye.
Alright.
the ninth, what did we decide, 6?
Yes.
Sherry, who do you work with at Baker Tilly?
I have to go back and look.
Oh, I-
I'd have to go back and look at the names, I can't even remember.
Melvia is who I always worked with, and
Gotta get over here to
It's true.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Don't be surprised if I'm.
Okay, yeah, and then this is 2.
These are health care.
I think that's what was said. For the initial round, it doesn't mean
Initial round.
anybody's